Hello, it's Gail here from 3 Wise Crafters and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to make this stencil card using the Altenew Stencil Art Charming Delight, and there is also a coordinating die that is an add-on, or you can buy them as a set. I highly recommend buying them as a set just because it makes it easier for you then to be able to cut out your stenciled image, and it gives you more options for creativity. This card technically is a card panel stuck onto a card base, but you could have done all the stenciling on your card base and technically have had a one layer card. So I have my cardstock here and I'm using Hammermill. It's 100 pound. And it's very thin in the feel of the cardstock, not like some of your other cardstock that feels really thick. So I've just got some Express It double-sided tape runner here that's removable. So I'm just put some on the back, and then I can stick that down to my Wendy Vecchi Make Art station. So we're using the Stencil Art Charming Delight from the May release. And the Stencil Art collection is a new range of products that Altenew have out. I think this is only the second one in the Stencil Art range. This is a 6 layering stencil, and on the back it goes through just all the stencils so that you have an idea of where they go. Now, Altenew do really good information guides. So on the inside there is also a color guide that you can use, and they show you where the different ink colors go so that you have a rough idea of the layout. Now, if you haven't used Altenew stencils before, following this guide to start with is always a good starting point. And if you haven't got the colors that are listed, you can substitute. So I have our first stencil here, and this is the first part of the flower that we do. And it has etchings on it that you can see with A1, and then this one has A2 on it. So what I want to do, this is the way that the stencil is designed to go, but I want my flower arrangement to go this part of the card. So I'm just going to turn the stencil to where I would like the placement to be, and then I will tape it down onto my card panel. So I'm trying to go for a 1 layer card. Even though I know that this is a card panel, I just want to stick this flat onto my card base and just have all the stenciling and the sentiment straight onto our A2 card panel. So that bit of tape that I got was a bit small, so I actually need to go a bit bigger. And we'll use that in a minute to do some masking on our flowers down below. So I'm also going to be using the Altenew dried petals for ink set for this stenciling for the color of the flowers, and then I'll end up using some other inks for the flower centers and our leaves. So I haven't used these inks before, so I just did a bit of a testing on a scrap piece of photocopy paper, and I know that the camera is not showing these colors up very well, but they sort of go from a light dusty pink and move up to a darker mahogany sort of color. Now this pink one here, which is mauve, is really, really pretty. I don't know why they named it mauve when it is really a dusty pink. So the first color that we're going to use is Pink Crystal, and ink blending is probably one of my favorite things to do. It's quick and easy, and I find it relaxing. So I don't know about you, but I tend to do a lot of stenciling with my projects. You can do so many different things with it. You can do one layer cards like this, or you can use coordinating dies or embossing folders and have more options with your project design. So we're just putting down a layer of the pink crystal, and then we're going to move on to the mauve colour and our A2 part of our stencil. So what I'll do is I'll give the stencil a bit of a wipe, just so that I get off this pink. And what I do with that is I just use an inky towel and some rubbing alcohol. This is Isocol, and it's available in Australia at supermarkets and at pharmacies. But wherever you live, you'll have a similar product in the alcohol rubbing range, and you'll be able to clean your stencils as well. So all you need to do is give your stencil a spray and rub it gently with another cloth or with the same cloth, and that'll take off all your ink, and it dries instantly. So when you clean off your stencil, Altenew are well known for having intricate bits on their stencils, and these can catch on your cloths. So it's better to have one of your cloths underneath and another one on top, just to pat it dry. Or if your original cloth is big enough, to fold it over and then pat your stencil dry, and it'll clean up really well. So we just need to line up this stencil, and there is etchings on your stencil to make it easier to line it up. And I just have to remember that I actually turned my stencil as well, and I just need to take that into account when I'm lining it up with a colour underneath. So that looks pretty good, and we can just put our tape down so we don't get ink on our cards panel where we don't want it. And then we'll do the same up here. We'll just reuse this tape and mask off this area. I'm not too worried about this bit here because I shouldn't get that. And then we'll move on to the second colour, which is mauve, and probably my favourite out of the four of these colours that are in the ink set. So I have my blending brush again, and we'll just go over this very lightly just to add that hint of colour. I don't want it to be too overpowering. And these inks will dry back a bit as well. And you can add in heavier colour down near the flower base as well, just to add that bit extra definition. But with these layering stencils, you don't really need to do that. Each layer of the stencil is going to create a different colour and different dimension on your card. So we'll be able to see what this looks like over the top of the pink crystal. Already we can see our flower starting to take shape and have a bit of colour definition within it. So now we're on to our second stencil, and we need to do the A3 part. So again, I just need to turn that and line it up with our flower underneath. And then we can just mask off the areas on our card panel. So when I make these videos, I don't have any idea of what I'm going to do before I start recording, and I just create as I go along. So I hope that you enjoy what I do. And now we're using the Berrylicious, And I'm using the red brush for this one just because it's a darker pink, and I thought it was better suited for the red brush. It's probably not, but it's not going to matter too much. So I was trying to keep the lighter colours on the pink brush if I could. But this is a pretty colour as well. So let me know in the comments, what do you do? Do you have just a play and make a finished product that way? Or do you design it out and then make your project? My head tends to think too far ahead, so I just try and create as I go. If I overthink it, then I don't end up creating anything. So I found that this way is working a lot better for me at the moment, but things can always change. Alright, now this is the fourth part of our flower, and that looks so pretty. When we've done the rest of the flower, I'll hold it up and show you. So I have our fourth part of our flower lined up, and these stencils are really easy to line up. What I'm finding is just using this flower center here helps line it up really easy. So there's a little bit of a hint if you've got this stencil in your collection, or if you have other flower stencils similar that has a flower stencil, a flower center, sorry, then that can be used as your guide to line it all up. I also record the voice part of these live as well. I've just found that that's a little bit easier as I'm recording and trying to manage my business at the same time. It just saves me a lot of time at the moment to do the voice recording as I am making the card. So this will just add some darkness to the, hopefully the flower petals at the base of them, and give us that definition that we need with our flower. So that was really quick and easy to do. And this is the acacia berry. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but it'll do. So that's our flower at the moment. It looks very stark here and here. So hopefully once these colors dry back a bit, it'll blend in a little bit better. So I have our third stencil here, and this has our leaves and small little flower buds on it. So what I'm going to do is line up the leaves and concentrate on those first. So I have the Frosted Foliage Fresh Dye inks here, and our stencil is lined up where we need it on our card panel, and I have the Silver Sage ink pad that I'm going to use first. And just apply a coverage of ink over all of the leaf parts. I have masked off this area. This is some flower buds for later on in our card. So how many of you like Altenew products? They're probably one of my favourite product range, along with Pink Fresh and Spellbinders. So my daughter enjoys stenciling as well, so at some stage I will do another video with her in it. She was in a video with me a little while ago. You can only see her hands, and she needed me to help her with her project, just cleaning off the stencil, but she did all the stenciling herself, and she chose the colours that she used also. And when she was finished, I had to stick the card panel to a card base for her, but she chose that as well. So I might have her on again. She loves stenciling, so she likes spending time with mum doing these sorts of projects. I've done that, finished with the Silver Sage. So I'll link that video with my daughter in it for you above, so make sure you check that out. We use the Waffle Flower Postage Collage Rose stencil and die, and had lots of fun with that, and she would like to be able to make more of that type of thing with me, and she loves doing these sorts of from Altenew as well. So we're on to Jade now, and our second layer for the leaves. So have never used the Waffle Flower products before with the postage collage, and we had lots of fun with that. It was really easy to use, and if you haven't tried it out, I highly recommend it. And these ones from Altenew, the stencils, are really easy to use too, and they're quick to create some cards. You can just create card panels and use them for when you need them. So what I'll often do is I'll just sit and do a whole lot of different colored stenciling with the same set of stencils, and then I have a lot of card fronts that I can use for different things. They don't have sentiments on them, but I might trim them down as well, and it just makes your card making so much quicker and easier if you batch make like that. So there is a subtle tone on from the jade onto the silver sage. Now we're on to the third layer of colour on our leaves, and for this one we're going to use eucalyptus. And each shade of green that we're adding, or the same with the flowers, each shade of pink that we added just adds that bit extra dimension to your finished project. So what do you do with your card making when you're struggling with ideas on what to make? How do you get inspiration? Do you search on social media? Do you just walk away from card making or scrapbooking for a while and come back to it when the inspiration hits? I know there's different times that I struggle. I struggle with color combinations a lot. So I find it's good with certain brands of inks that they have sets of color like these from Altenew. It really helps. You don't have to think about colors. You can just pull out a set of 4 inks and your colours are already there for you. Having said that, you can mix and change up your colours. You don't have to use them from the same family set either. So we can see the leaves are starting to take shape now, and we'll be on to our 4th stencil. So I have our 4th layer for our leaves, and I'm using Forest Fern for this. Now, also with my videos, I tend to film a lot in real time, and that allows you to see how quickly a card project comes together. And that you know that if I can do it on camera, you can do it in real life. There's nothing stopping us from having a go at any card project that someone makes. Just the self-doubt that we impose on ourselves, and sometimes we're our own biggest worst enemy. I know that I am. So I may not have wanted to do this colour of shading over the flower bud stems, but we'll see what it looks like at the end. Until you actually try a stencil, you're not 100% sure of how it's going to turn out. For you, it's all good having a guide to follow and a project that has been made already on the packaging, but until you use it yourself, you're not sure of what you like as well. So now we're up to doing our flower centers and our flower buds, and I'm going to do both of these in the same color family. So this ink set is the Golden Sunset. It's a crisp dye ink range. If you're looking at it in the fresh dye inks, the only one that's not included is the Marigold, and Altenew have changed that for the color Terracotta. So you can still get these three colours, the Sunray, Chamomile and Snapdragon, but you can't get the Marigold in this same set combination. So now we just need to do our flower centres, and we have these up here, and again it's labelled as A5 and A6. So we only need to do the flower centre on this one. So I have our flower centre lined up, and I'm just using some micro blending brushes or mini blending brushes. I get these off Amazon and they work pretty good, and you can get flat ones and you can get angled ones. I've just using whatever ones have the colour on that I need today, and I'll have all of the supplies linked below, so if you are interested in any of the products that I've used, it will all be linked below in the description for you. So the first one we're going to use is Sunray, and that will be our base colour for our flower centre. And I'm just using the mini blending brushes here and just going in with that to add colour for our flower centre. If you heard that noise, it was the stencil guy just falling. So I apologise for that if you heard it. So because we're in pretty much the same tone of colours, I'm just going to give the stencil a quick wipe, and I'll clean it once we've done this next one. So you can line this up fairly easy, just by turning it around until you get it where you need to be. And then we can move on to the second colour, which is Chamomile. And this part of your card panel is very, very quick to do. So now we're up to the number A7, which is down here, A7 and A8. So this is the part that we've just done, and we can just line that up, and it lines up with part of the A6 that we've just stenciled. So we can put our magnets down. If you haven't used the Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station before, it's pretty good. It's magnetic. It will hold your stencils down with the magnets. I just tape it for extra security, but you can also use your grip mats or whatever you have. So this color is Snapdragon, and just quickly apply a little bit of color, and as you can see, it's getting darker and darker with the extra layers that we apply. I'm just going to quickly wipe off some of that color, just so that our tape can stick on where we need it to mask off the area, so that we don't get color where we don't need it. Although, because this is a pretty small area and we're using small blending brushes, we'll be alright, because we can apply the ink just to this part of our stencil. So this next color is Marigold, and sometimes I have trouble taking the lids off, so I don't know if anybody else experiences that as well. So the Marigold is more of a orange than a yellow. These ones down here tend to be more on the yellow side of the family, and Chamomile sort of is between the yellow and the orange. So now we're up to doing the flowers on this stem and this stem here. So the first lot is C1, and then the next lot here is D1 on our stencil. So I have our stencil lined up to do our flower buds here. I'm going to use Sunray and a mini ink blending brush, or it might be called a micro blending brush depending on what brand you have. So I'm just going to go over the top with the Sunray. I've cleaned off my blending brush because we had the marigold on it as our last colour, and it would change the tone of the colour combination that we're using if I hadn't have cleaned off my brush first. So it's always a good idea to clean off your blending brush if you've got a darker colour on it first. If you're going from light to dark, it doesn't matter as much. And we'll use the Sunray and we'll do our flower buds up here at the same time. So I have the flower buds lined up here and just applying Sunray to these as well. And it doesn't take long to do the flower buds. Just might need to go in for a little bit more ink depending on how much you've got on your brush. So for our next layer, we are using Hammermill on our flower buds, and we'll just quickly do both lots of those. So now we're doing the second lot of flower buds with Hammermill. And now, once we clean off this stencil, we'll move on to the next colour. So I have our third stencil arranged for our flower buds, and for this one we're going to use Snapdragon. And we'll do Snapdragon on both lots of the colour, on both lots of the flower buds, sorry. It's so quick and easy just to apply some colour down. So just going in quickly with the Snapdragon, just to do these flowers up here. And then we'll be on to the last layering stencil for our card panel. Now in the stencil set, it actually has the word hugs. So to make it easier and to use just one product in today's card, I am just going to use the hugs that comes with the stencil, and I'm just going to put that down here on my card panel. And then what I'm going to do is use the Altenew Enchanted Gold Pigment ink, and I've just got an old dauber here that I don't know how long I've had this for. I can't find my foam blending brushes that I have that I would use for the pigment ink. But this will do as long as you haven't used it for anything else. It will get the gold on it, and then we can just pounce it up and down on our card. So I haven't used this colour ink before from Altenew, so this is a new product for me. And we'll be able to see how it looks once we've applied it onto our stencil. Now I'm just going to hold the stencil down so it doesn't move and we don't risk then the ink going underneath. Now all I'm doing to apply that is a twisting motion, and that way I know that the ink is going on. We're pouncing it up and down, it wasn't working as good, so just make sure you do it with a bit of a twisting motion, and then you'll be able to see where you need to apply a bit more ink. So I'm not sure how this dries back or what it looks like when it's finished, and it'll be a new experience for all of us. So hopefully you've made it this far in watching the video. So I've just got a habit of cleaning up my craft supplies as I go. Well, that's really pretty. So that's what it looks like. Enchanted Gold Pigment ink for the sentiment. That looks quite pretty. So then that's what our flowers look like. And I wanted just to add a little bit of gold shimmer splatter over the top, but I'll wait until some of this is dried a little bit to do that. So I've just got a silicone mat here, the Altenew Enchanted Gold Pigment ink again, which I'm just going to put a little bit down on my silicone mat. Might not put enough down. And then I've just got the Spellbinders Mister Spray. If you haven't used this spray before, it is really, really good. And if you use dye inks on better press plates, it works fantastic. So I've got a fan brush and I'm just going to go in and pick up some of that ink. And then just do some little splatters. There might not be enough on the brush. Usually I do a different type of watercolor paint for this, not a pigment ink. But that is exactly the size of the splatters that I want. So I'm just going back in and picking up a little bit more, and I'm sort of going across the card. And that's just giving us a very, very subtle effect on our card panel, which doesn't really show up on camera. So you could use the coordinating dies to cut out your flower arrangement, and there is also a die in there to be able to cut out the sentiment hugs. So then that allows you a little bit more creativity with your projects, and you can buy the stencils on their own, but what I find is it's much more versatile to have the die as well. You can create a lot more projects by having the dies, unless you're into fussy cutting. Fussy cutting and I do not get along, and I believe it's that way for a lot of people. So what we're going to do now is I've got Neenah Solar White in 110 pounds here, and I use this for all of my card bases. So I'm going to score this, and then I'll stick a card panel on, and then our card is finished. So I have the score buddy here, and I'm scoring at 4 1/4, and this makes it so much easier to score your cards and fold them in half. I don't know what you use, but this fits really easy on my desk and stores really well. This is just a small one that is, I think it's about 6 3/4 this way, and then it's about the same in the other direction. So it makes it easier to do your cards on. I have a 12 by 12 in a different brand, and I'm now going for the smaller one because it's just easier to fit on my desk as I'm crafting. So I have our card base and our card panel, and I'm just using some Gina Design Connect glue in a fine tip bottle, which makes it a lot easier for me to apply the glue, especially for finer detail pieces, especially those thin sentiments that brands are bringing out nowadays. This makes it a lot easier to put the glue on. So how I put my panels on is I line up one corner, and then I line up the side, because if you've got the long side lined up, your panel should then fall into place when you drop it down if you've cut it to size. Sometimes they're a little bit off, but using glue gives you a little bit of wriggle room just to make sure that your card panel is lined up really well. So this card was quite simple to make, and the layout is quite simple as well, but you can see how quick and easy it comes together. So if you ever get caught out and have forgotten a birthday, or you need a card in a hurry, doing a card like this is something that you can always go to do. So this is our finished card. I hope you've enjoyed watching today's video. All the supplies will be listed in the description below, so make sure that you check that out. If you have enjoyed watching today's video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.